Alright y'all, welcome back to another Throwback Day Out with Thomas video. In this video you will be seeing me riding behind 630 on the Missionary Ridge Local. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the video starts with me and my dad and my sister arriving at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum, getting ready to park. And as soon as we park, we walk towards Grand Junction to get our tickets to ride behind 630. After we parked, 630 came in to Grand Junction with the Missionary Ridge Local, and she began to climb up the Y to turn to come into the back of Grand Junction. After 630 turned on the Y, she pulled into the back of Grand Junction so that we can board the train.
Now you guys do realize you're looking at the man that painted that, did the bodywork and painted that.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's awesome.
And believe me, it's a lot of work.
Oh, I have no doubt.
There's not many people that can do that anymore.
Not many people that can do what?
Can paint that. So they don't have the time, they don't have the patience, they don't have the knowledge, the layout.
I'm on in 6:30. That's it, old girl.
After we boarded the train, 630 got ready to depart from Grand Junction to East Chattanooga.
Arm your way out of your coach. Trash receptacles are located on the ends of your cars. We do not have custodians that come on between trips, so the crew, myself included, would have to be part-time custodian, all right? And we don't have a whole lot of time to be able to do that, so we greatly appreciate your courtesy in that respect. All right, we're underway. Now, the first thing I need to do for you is point out what side is left and what side is right. And it's not an insult to your intelligence, ladies and gentlemen. After all, some of you are facing two different directions in your quad seating on your coaches. So, if we're talking about left, when I say look left today throughout our tour, I'm talking about the same side you see your Grand Junction station located on. The station side is your left, making the other side not your left, right? And up behind the station on the hill on the right is a main line that was completed in the early 1950s, which would allow the railroads to divert around Missionary Ridge, no longer using the line we're using today. It would be abandoned by the Southern Railway. Now, of course, down below in the display yard, of course, the parking lot side, you see some of the equipment that we use coaches on our day out with Thomas. We're going to talk individually about your coaches that we're using in our contest today on our Missionary Ridge Local in just a few moments. Now, just as we clear the end of our yard here at Grand Junction, you continue to look down and to the left what appears to be a gravel driveway leading up to South Chickamauga Creek, and the crossing there was the original location of the East Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia Railroad. Track laid in 1858 and actually began operating in 1859, pre-American Civil War. Now in the early 1900s, the line was diverted. Obviously, we're elevated and located to the right of the original right-of-way. One of the main purposes for that to be constructed, or reconstructed I should say, is because that would put you, the old line, directly in the floodplain. In fact, one of the worst of the floodings in the Chattanooga area puts that original gauge 9 feet under the water. Responsible? The flooding in this area, and certainly the South Chickamauga Creek we're crossing over. The bridge piers down and below, lining up with that original railroad, were the 1880s replacement piers. The first were like stone arch, somewhat ornate, like a Roman viaduct in structure. After a few years, they would start to destabilize, and they were replaced by the much more practical standard piers that you see today. Upstream to the left, a modern CSX bridge that lines up with the right-of-way we'll be crossing over in a few moments, was once a part of the old Western and Atlantic Railroad, that major railroad that connected Atlanta, Georgia to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga, due to all the railroads converging centrally into the city from all directions, what started off as a mere trading post along the Tennessee River, Ross's Landing. Later, ironically enough, after the Native Americans had been removed from the area in the 1830s, the name was changed to Chattanooga.
Oh, yeah, we're going
Native
into
American
McCarty Station.
coming from the ground to a point.
It's all exciting.
We cross over very slowly, again down to the left with the 1880s replacement piers.
Yep, we're going into
Imagine
McCarty
how much
Station.
flooding it would take for that creek water to rise. 9
We're just
feet.
going into the
You may have
siding.
seen the painted marking along the tree, the interpretive sign indicating such.
I think it's some. Yeah, we gotta. I think we gotta let Thomas pass by.
In just a few moments.
Just put it over your mouth, okay?
Maybe you've heard of the Great Locomotive Chase. If you have, James Andrews and his Raiders confiscating that wood-burning locomotive, the General, right around Big Shanty Station, which is the Kennesaw, Georgia area today on the map. The plan was to take that locomotive and a few of the cars north, tearing up track along the way, burning bridges after they crossed over, disrupting the Confederate supply line. It was intended that a Union force poised in North Alabama, in conjunction with James Andrews and his Raiders, they would be able to sweep down from Huntsville and capture the city of Chattanooga, which, by the way, was extremely important for the Union cause because of its location. In fact, Abraham Lincoln would put just as much emphasis, if not more.
After we pulled into McCarty siding, we watched as Thomas went through with this train. This is actually the first time that TVRM has used McCarty siding, because usually McCarty siding is used for like storage and for their equipment and all the other things. But ever since they built that new track at Allied Metals, they use it for operations as well. As you can see right here, Thomas is now passing by, and you can also see that he is pulling 6 coaches. In 1488, 1486, 390, 907, 1037, and 906. And Thomas is being pushed by Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, number 80. And that's it.
Early 1950s, one of the main reasons.
After Thomas had just finished passing us by, we continued on our way to East
Even though the
Chattanooga.
Southern Railway later in the 1900s would have this right-of-way, which we're using today, they would actually double track the railroad, having 2 lanes of rail. So just as we did in our siding, actually beyond the siding they would have 2 lanes of rail. Trains could be passing by each other at any point in time. The problem is, just as we will encounter in a few moments, they had to contend with the same tunnel that was built just before operating this line in 1858 was the year, the tunnel through Missionary Ridge. It's a single portal tunnel, which means it only allows for 1 train at a time to pass through Missionary Ridge. You can imagine disaster would strike if, in fact, those trains met somewhere in the tunnel. So at the time, to remedy that from happening, keep that from happening, sidings were actually built, just as we pulled off a few moments ago. They were located on the approaches to both sides of the tunnel. A 2-story structure known as VM Tower was located on the East Chattanooga portal side. After we pass through the tunnel, passengers on the right will be able to see the only thing left over from the 2-story VM Tower, and that is the foundation. But the controller would have a pretty high-level stressful job, I imagine, like an air traffic controller, if you think about that, responsible because he's going to be either switching those trains to the sidings and the others so that they may pass through Missionary Ridge. Now, as train traffic, both passenger and freight service, begins to pick up throughout the history of Chattanooga,
So there's that like metals.
this becomes a very antiquated structure, especially in the concept of the railroads in general, getting their passengers to and from their destinations as advertised. Freight service just as important. And when we talk about the golden age of railroading, we're talking about a period of time in the 20s
And there's the old cars right here. And I like
metals.
metals. There's 630's old tender and those old cars right there.
Depression, but the railroads were able to sustain and survive even through those very difficult times. Now, competition, I always like to say, breeds excellence. In other words, the more competition that you have, the
There's
same would
the
be true with the
CX6
railroads.
transportation, along with
The more
Allied Metals.
quality you're going to have. They wanted
There's
to
a
offer the
railroad
passengers.
crossing
They're all
right there.
passengers
And there's
by the
2594
accommodations for the passengers
and
aboard, such as dining
1824
service,
and 1829.
sleepers. Those coaches with those upper and lower berths to be able to sleep overnight trips, traveling from city to city, place to place, down to the very meticulous details, the paint schemes, the window lighting, all of those things. Now the golden age of railroading continues to the 30s, 40s, 50s, and the latter part of the 60s. The railroad was in a desperate situation as far as passenger service is concerned. A couple of things happened to make passenger service with the railroads drop and decline very rapidly. And that would be number one, the interstate systems were improved upon and more efficiency. Common family would have the automobile. That becomes very popular. Be able to travel from place to place, see the countryside, and of course being control of that. And also airline travel becomes much more affordable, efficient, and you see rapid
So we're picking up
drop
speed
off
here.
in passenger rail service. With that being said, railroads just to sustain and survive, they merge into other railroads, which merge into other railroads.
Right now we're about to cross over
By the latter part of
the bridge that
60s,
that goes over Tunnel Boulevard.
passenger trains left. Today, you have Amtrak. Some of our coaches here, they spared no expense on the detail involved. We just crossed over Tunnel Boulevard, ladies and gentlemen, minus the tunnel. But you see, the tunnel would actually have been, if it were still in existence, directly underneath as we passed over it would allow those automobiles and traffic on the boulevard to pass underneath the railroad. Once this line was abandoned in the 1950s, there was no more need for the tunnel at Tunnel Boulevard. The name remains Tunnel Boulevard. A bridge was actually built in the early 1970s when the Southern Railway donated more property to the museum here, and we were forced to bridge the gap, literally, building a spanning bridge. Now we're approaching Missionary Ridge and Whiteside Tunnel, named after Colonel James Whiteside, a notable investor and stockholder in the original railroad of the 1850s.
We'll be at the tunnel.
Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia Railroad. Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to experience 986 feet. Almost 3 football fields long, mostly dug by hand. That's right, mostly dug by hand. Picks, shovels, hand tools. They didn't have dynamite. That was not until 1867 that was through the pond. Black powder was your alternative.
I can't get your hand in my window.
After
You're gonna get.
the
Oh my
construction
God.
of this tunnel, specifically on the 25th of November 1863, the Battle of Missionary Ridge, Sherman attacked
like
from
a
the
curve.
East Chattanooga side, hitting the ridge here. But every soldier in both armies, Union and Confederate, knew black powder rifle muskets. The problem with black powder, if it gets wet, dampened in any form or fashion, it's useless. So imagine setting that into the rock, trying to blast that out. Gravity, water, that water drawing from the top of the ridge all the way down to the porous rock. It's going to be practically useless. 400 total crew, 200 working from either side. Once they break through the light begins to pour through from both sides.
Kid, put your head back in.
As they shovel and pick through that last
Put your head back in.
Whiteside Tunnel. If you have it flashed on your phone, hold that up right now and see just how close the tunnel walls are to your train. There are areas, there's only about 1.5 foot of clearance in fact. Here we go.
Yeah, it's very loud in here once. We're at East Chattanooga. There's no bats in this.
So now, Ryan, look over and you'll see
Trains
that
in there.
foundation from the 2-story BM tower. Encourage you to look that up online, and you'll typically see an image of gentlemen standing just in the foreground, the tunnel behind them, and the East Chattanooga portal side from the ridge in the background. Now, in a few moments, we'll be approaching our East Chattanooga yard. As we begin to enter our yard at East Chattanooga, those being your right, we'll see continuing down on about a 5% grade, the belt line. That's how we access points south on our longer excursions to Chickamauga, a 6-hour trip, a 9.5-hour trip to Summerville. Hopefully we'll resume those 9.5-hour trips at some point, but we are currently, after that next weekend, after our last weekend for Thomas, we'll be resuming our Chickamauga turn. Typically taking diesel power now on our longer 9.5-hour trips.
We're at Stevenson Street
whether it be our 630 or other operating locomotive in the 4501 built in 1911. Your engine today at 1904 steam locomotive. All the way down on a portion of the old Central Georgia Railway, the only Central Georgia line that ran actually into the city of Chattanooga. So the right-of-way, all the way up into the state of Tennessee, into the city, was owned by Central Georgia. You stepped off on either side, a few feet, and be in Tennessee.
Welcome to East Chattanooga. Again.
A few things, ladies and gentlemen. Please wait till we come to a complete stop before exiting. At the ramp, we'll direct you to the vestibule. So when we call your wristband, if you will exit at the time we call your wristband, so keep your seats before then. You're welcome to do two things. Number one, as soon as you cross over that bridgeway to the ramp there at East Chattanooga Depot, you can take a left down the steps. If you feel a little safer using the ramp, you can go straight ahead off our train off the vestibule on a ramp that gradually declines, wraps around to the front side of the building, and rejoins the main walkway. Regardless, if you'd like to see the turntable demonstration, it's as soon as you get on the main walkway at the platform, continue walking just to the right of our coaches, all the way down to the end of the property. You'll see a roped off encircling area there, which is our turntable. Once you get down there, there's plenty of room to spread out. On the ground is a marked painted yellow line. I need everyone to keep their feet behind that painted yellow line, and that is, of course, for your safety. We'll talk to you briefly about the history of the turntable itself, and then we'll explain and give you more detail into the history of our locomotive 630. At that point in time, there are restrooms located inside the depot itself, so you're welcome to use those at any time. As soon as we finish our turntable demonstration here at East Chattanooga, you can go ahead and reboard. And as we begin preparing to couple the engine back up after we get it turned and couple up on the other end, just as soon as we got everyone aboard and do that and everyone's in the clear, then we'll be ready to head back to Grand Junction Station. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and attention to this point, and we greatly appreciate you riding with us today. And we'll continue to talk to you throughout our trip. We'll be arriving at East Chattanooga in just a few moments.
Golden Deckham chickens again.
After we arrived at East Chattanooga, 6:30 uncoupled from the train and turned onto the turntable to turn to the other track to couple to the other end of the train.
Aspects of a steam locomotive, including large driving wheels, the side rods, the pistons, and the boiler, and the firebox down to the right where our engineer is seated. Now the next maneuver we'll do is actually balance the locomotive on the turntable itself. What does that mean? Well, there's a 6-foot bearing in the center of the turntable that actually takes all the weight of the locomotive in excess of roughly 150 tons. But that bearing allows it to be an elaborate teeter-totter, so that the weight is distributed in the center, so that once it is correctly distributed, it spins freely on the sides. We'll see a slight visual cue here in a moment when we see it dip down very slightly on the right. And there you saw it just there very gently. That indicates we have achieved our balance point and are now ready to begin spinning around. You might also be curious as to why it's necessary and included for us to have a turntable demonstration here, or why practically we might not just go in reverse all the way back to Grand Junction. Well, several reasons for this. It is historical and practical.
Over to that yellow one.
Steam locomotives are meant to do one thing extremely well. That is to go forward for a long distance, carrying passengers as well as freight. Again, for long distances. Reverse movements absolutely are possible. We do them all the time. But for a long distance, not so much practical. As behind the locomotive portion itself is a large tender that holds all the coal and the water for your journey. And if you're looking in the reverse direction, all you see is steel. You don't have a clear line of sight in front of you to see where you're going. And so turntables were a practical solution in this historical context to quickly and efficiently get locomotives turned in the correct direction for forward-facing travel. And again, this is a very contemporary pairing we see with the artifacts of a 1916 turntable in operation and a 1904 steam locomotive atop it. And again, this particular artifact that is pulling us as our locomotive for today, a 1904 vintage, is the Southern Railway number 630, built by the American Locomotive Company, called Alto's Restored. and it is classified as a 280 type locomotive. That refers to the number of wheels that it has. 2 small wheels at the front, the guys in and out of curves, 8 large driving wheels behind that, 4 on either side, and none underneath the cab to support. Hence the designation 280. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now lining up not on the track number 1, but on the track number 2, just to the right, so we can bypass our contest on the right-hand side, merge back into track number 1 via switch, go in reverse a couple, and the locomotive will be on the other end of our train. Folks, let's give a hand to our crew for a job well done in that living history presentation. Keeping the 630 up and running for future generations, folks. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin making our way slowly to the train for our reboarding process. If anyone does need a restroom as well, they are available in the east side of the depot just to the left of our train set. Our departure time will be 12:12.
Watch where we're going.
After 6:30 turned on the turntable to face the other train, we headed back to Grand Junction from East Chattanooga.
Okay, do that tunnel again now. Just remember now, if you're scared of the dark, just close your eyes. Okay? Hey guys, how we doing here?
Good.
Batman, you doing good?
Good.
All right, good. Thanks for running, everybody. All right, Miss Summerlin, doing good? Doing great. All right. Good. Thanks for running. Folks, doing okay? Hey, this train, there's no lunch for this train. We do have a dinner train tonight at 6:30. We have lunch. We got roast beef. We got stuffed chicken. Oh, okay. That sounds good. All right, so you see what you all see what they make? Be careful, buddy. Get close to that tunnel. No cocktails. No more appetizers. I'll be back in a little bit.
Hold on tight. It's just smell that fresh air. Oh gosh. Slow down for. Picking up speed, picking up speed. There were the old cars that I was talking about earlier. So there's McCarty sighting that I was talking about earlier in the video. I just love that sound. So we're about to pull in the Grand Junction, and we're about to do some more rail fanning around here.
Alright, but I have to have you go in now because I got to do a shove here.
There goes Thomas.
After we got off of 6:30, I watched her depart with her next Missionary Ridge local train.
Time is now 1:05 and 6:30 is about to depart in Grand Junction in a little bit. See, Conductor Justin.
Alright, yo, so that will wrap up another Throwback Day Out with Thomas video. Hope you all have enjoyed it. Please be sure to like, comment, hit the bell icon for notifications of new videos, and subscribe. Thank you all again for watching, and I will see y'all tomorrow.